Hello, dear listeners and watchers of the WBNL podcast. I have a question for you. Is this a pet peeve of yours, like it is for me? People who really suck at communicating.
Hey, it's one of my pet peeves. And let's sit back and have a little communication magic today on the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
You've reached the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. And now your hosts, Jan O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. This is episode 255. You can find all of those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. Jan O'Brien, we've been talking about this episode for a little while. If you are a member of our weekly email subscription, for the last 3 weeks, you've been getting little teasers of communication. We've talked about texting. We've given you some tips on emailing. Just yesterday, there was some tips on, or this morning, I believe, as we filmed this, tips on, making that phone call. And today, we're going to go a little bit deeper about, how you can improve your communication throughout a transaction. And maybe, just maybe, I think that, but you can lead by example, right?
Exactly.
And we can save the world.
We could save the world. It's so true. It's like, this has been, I've been keeping some notes because as being back in production and doing transactions on over the last 2 years, it's so refreshing when you have great communication with someone else. And by the way, these things we're going to talk about today are just not for real estate business.
Right.
I mean, they're universal principles. We're going to talk some specifics about real estate, to how to be proactive in your communication. But I bet if you're listening, you agree. If you are working with someone who is just as good at staying in touch, which I feel like we are, then it just makes for a happy experience. And it's so frustrating and stressful when it's like pulling teeth to get somebody to answer you, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to be proactive. We're calling it communication magic.
So abracadabra.
And we are going to jump in proactive communication for real estate success. I just feel like this is the biggest complaint. When I was a broker, I would say that this is the complaint I got most often from clients of agents who would call to complain about their agents not communicating with them. It's just never hardly changed. It's easy to fix this. So let's start with a couple little inspirational quotes, though, because I was looking for an eloquent way to state what I was just talking about. And here's one from Richard Branson. Communication is the most important skill any leader can possess. And boy, do I agree with that.
And
if Matt and I, if we were to think back to our long career of corporateness, and I think this applies to anybody who's been in corporateness. I used to make statements about lack of communication caused so many challenges. Sometimes I've been in companies where they were really slow in communicating important information, and it just doesn't look good anywhere around. So if leaders, we're all leaders, communication is the most important skill. I agree. What else do we have? Here's what I was really trying to summarize. And Mark Sanborn, written a lot of books. In teamwork, silence isn't golden, it's deadly. Mm-hmm. And that is what I was trying to find a fun way to say that, or a quippy, eloquent way to say what's in my head, which is when you don't communicate, or when if you have a client who hasn't heard from you, or you're working with another real estate agent and you don't hear from them, what happens is we start to go down this rabbit hole of, I wonder what's going on, or you start overthinking it and you get frustrated because you're trying all these ways. And if you're the agent trying to talk to your buyer and you can't get the other agent that's representing the seller to call you back or to just keep you updated, and you're constantly having to poke them for that, it's just frustrating. And silence can be deadly in this situation when you're not communicating information. So Absolutely. Love that quote.
Yep.
And I think we have one more.
Yep. This
is Paul Mayer. Communication, the human connection, and we're going to share some ideas about this, is the key to personal and career success. We, with technology and the phone and texting and all this, we have so gotten away from picking up the phone and talking to people, which I think we need to get better at doing that. So I want to share some ideas around that today as well.
Yeah.
All right,
People have just used the texting and emailing as a way to avoid making that personal contact. Such a shame. You can really stand out in the crowd if you pick up that phone.
It's efficient
Yeah.
but it doesn't need to be every way you communicate. Important things need to be a phone call, in my opinion. I'm always going to be that way, but I work with so many people who are younger and so many other folks, not necessarily younger, but they just don't think picking up the phone is the way to go. And I think there's a whole generation, Matt, of people who who are missing that point. Younger people that are not even in the business yet, like young teenagers, it's the same point. I think it's going to be worse as time goes by.
I have a sidebar already, and we're only on slide 4. My sweet pea is a teacher. She had her back to school night this past week, and kids have their devices, and they're supposed to have them charged every night. And it's always a problem. There's always 1 or 2 or 5 kids that don't have their devices charged, which is a real big hassle, because then you got to work on getting them all plugged in, or you have to wait and do it later. You know what I mean? Until there's stuff. So it's a problem. Anyway, she had kind of touched on a little bit during back to school night, but really didn't emphasize it like she wanted to, just to remind the parents, hey. And she goes, oh gosh, I'm so mad at myself for not, making a bigger point out of getting your devices charged. This is going to be a problem. I'll send an email out tomorrow. And I said to her, okay, may I make a suggestion?
Very good.
And she said, sure. Because, got to ask permission to communicate sometimes. And I said, are there like a few people that just are, your usual suspects that come back? She said, yeah. I said, don't you think you'd probably have better luck if you just called those 4 parents and said, hey, can you make sure that Johnny's computer is charged up every day? Because you send that email out, I guarantee you, they probably won't read it, and your problem is gonna last a lot longer. And she looked at me, she goes, I hate it when you're right about things. You are right. I should just pick up the phone and call those parents. I said, yeah.
It's a nice touch, the teacher calling, and you're doing it in a nice way. It's wow.
It's partnering, right? It's like, hey, give me a hand here. Help me get Johnny's thing. It's gonna help him. It's gonna help the class move along. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'll be doing a lot of sidebars. I'll be doing a lot of communications.
I love it. It's brilliant. These are what sharing the stories is what the whole point we're trying to get across here.
To the point, like you said, it's not necessarily just a real estate thing. It happens throughout any career, right, or in personal life.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, even in all corporations and everything that you do. All right. So we're going to start out with, it's about setting expectations for communication with everybody, right? With your clients, with the other agents, your partners, like the lender, escrow. Why not be proactive from the beginning, knowing what's the preferred method of communicating with anyone? Don't just assume because you like to text, everybody wants to text. Yep. So it's a question I ask all the time with my clients. Now, for the most part, and even with the lender, like our lender prefers to get an email. She'll get it because she's always on her email. And then she's like a text if it's really something you need to get my attention on. So these are important things to know. Just don't make that assumption, right? Now, one of these things that I really think is powerful, and it's this idea of being the first to connect, being the first with the news, specifically with your clients. And what I mean here is be in control of the messaging. If your client's calling you to get an update, that's a sign that you're not doing a great job communicating. Okay, now I'm saying in a normal world, not with someone who is hyper or have to talk to you every 5 minutes kind of person. But in the normal sense of a transaction, you set the expectations in the beginning of a listing. If you're representing a buyer or a seller in a transaction in particular, once you're in escrow, once it's under contract, it's great to say, okay, this is what we do. We will say to our buyers and sellers, even the first week or so of the opening of the escrow, we have a lot of little things to take care of. Here's what we're going to be doing. Then we're going to have some time where there's not much to do other than this, that, or the other, waiting on the appraisal, et cetera. And then at the end, we have to hustle and get these things done. So you're kind of telling them, we're going to be busy now. It's going to be a wait. We have a 45-day escrow. We're going to have a little downtime. We're still going to stay in touch and let you know what's going on. And I'll go through how we do that. So to make sure that it's all system, guys. It's just all setting expectations, but then being the one who's letting them know what's happening. This is going to make your people feel so taken care of. You're giving them this true experience of customer service.
Right.
So be the person to tell people what's going on first. One of the things I used to do is Monday morning calls for sellers. If we're in a market where it takes a while to sell a house, then you got to call them every Monday just to check in. If you let 2 or 3 weeks go by and you haven't talked to your seller because nobody's looking at the house, that's a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So be in control of that. Make sure you're telling people that you're working with, what's your schedule and availability? When do you return calls? Are you, like I tell people all the time and in coaching and people that I work with is you got to have some boundaries. You cannot be on 24/7.
Nope.
It's okay to tell your clients, I'm taking some family time on Sunday. If it's an emergency, you can get a hold of me. People will respect that you don't like to take calls after 7 o'clock because that's family time. Unless it's an emergency, just set the expectations. People will respect that. They don't want you to work 24/7. You think you might have to work 24/7. And it goes without saying, you need to return calls, emails, and texts promptly. I work on this all the time, and I'm like, if something comes in and I'm working with Cosmo, my partner, and I'll be like, look, I know we don't have an answer yet, but we need to make sure that we're communicating to that agent and not wait for a day to respond to their email. So let's respond and go, hey, got it. And that right there, we're having an example of that right now in a transaction where everything's clicking. We're working with a big team, and the listing manager in charge is really good at communicating, which is surprising, to be honest. Hasn't always been my experience with this particular group, but it's very refreshing. And so I'm on it. I'm like, let me take charge of this because I want to continue to because I want that other agent to have the experience of like, wow, we're working with some people who really communicate and know what they're doing, because I do believe that tends to have things go your way. Let me just say it that way, okay? As opposed to having somebody frustrated that you never respond to their emails. Okay, so return all that communication promptly. And then this one is just another pet peeve. I literally have had this happen a couple times in the last few weeks. If you are a real estate professional and I'm calling you, your voicemail better not be full.
Oh my God.
Okay? Number one, or if you've never gotten around to recording a voicemail message and you're like in year 15 of the real estate business, and then you get that generic person that comes on and says 702-858-5555 is not available. Oh my God. That is just saying I am not a professional. I mean, come on. It needs to say, hey, this is me. This is how you can get in touch with me, or I return my calls here, or whatever. You need to kind of identify who you are. People will be like, did I dial the right number? So those are a couple of my pet peeves on voicemail. Voicemail full. Empty your freaking voicemail box.
How does that even happen?
I don't even know.
I mean, seriously.
And I'm like, I'll be texting like, FYI, your voicemail box is full. You might want to clear that out. Not a good sign. Okay, so anyway,
you were talking about, be in charge of the message. Really, you really can raise the bar and be in charge of the way communication is going to happen in your transaction all the way across the board, like you already said, with the other agents and the vendors and everything. You set the tone, right? Yeah. Be the leader. Right?
Totally right. So love all that, and then we have collaborative deal making. My good friend Steve Kitnick, been working with him and training with him for years past. He came up with this term. I don't know if he got it from somewhere, but I liked it. It's back in the days when we were doing lots of short sales. It was so important then too, but as it is today. And what I mean by collaborative deal making is it starts with this. So if I'm representing the buyer, I'll stick with this for a second. If I'm representing the buyer and I want to go write an offer, I immediately call and talk to the listing agent for a couple reasons, right? This is just good business practice. Mm-hmm. Hey, Matt, Jan O'Brien, Urban Nest Realty, just showed you property at 123 Apple Street. By the way, great property. Is it still available? Do you have any offers on it? Because my client's interested. And so I'm going to have this conversation with the listing agent. And I'm doing for a couple reasons. I want to build rapport. I always find a way to communicate with people and do something and there's only a few times where I've had somebody who is a real hard case that they won't chill out a little bit and be friendly. Like they're like, I'm not going to tell you anything, Right. But for the most part, I'm trying to basically say, hey, Matt, I noticed that you didn't, you have a particular title company or escrow officer you like to work with, we're good with writing that in. I know you do a lot of listings. That people find that refreshing, because so many agents will go, well, the buyer gets to choose the escrow company, the title company, and that's completely not true. RESPA Title 9, I think it's 9 or 10, and I'm paraphrasing, basically says the seller of real property cannot make it a condition of the sale that the buyer purchase title insurance from a specific title company. That's what it says. And that has turned into, over the years, of, well, the buyer gets to pick the title company. No, who pays for the title insurance? The big policy in most states, the seller.
Yep.
Yes, it's true the buyer has to get a title policy for the lender. And so without getting into how to handle that, I'm all about the collaborative deal making. Where would you like to go? Is there anything else that the seller is needing in this transaction? Do they need a longer time frame or whatever? I just try to talk to them. I'm building rapport. I'm also trying to get across, I'm professional. I can't wait to work with another professional. I'll find a way to get them laughing or doing something fun about that. And then I talk to them about what's their preferred communication. And then I say, you know what, let me see if my buyer wants to write the offer, or, okay, you have multiple offers. Let me check back to see if the buyer wants to go ahead and be in the middle of that. I'm going to let you know either way. Now that's important, because I am trying to set, if I ever work with this person again, people appreciate it. If it's like, I'll be like, hey, Matt, I'll text Matt and say, or I'll call and say, hey, my buyer's decided not to write. Let me know if it falls out or if you don't get it together. They just don't want to go ahead and be in a multiple offer situation, as opposed to not ever saying anything.
Right.
So it's little things like this that you can do that set the tone for how you're going to work with the other agent. And when we're on the listing side, I do the same thing. I establish a rapport with that other agent. I talk about how let's communicate. I look forward to a professional transaction. It's refreshing to work with somebody who picks up the phone. And sometimes I'll say, wow, Matt, this is usually what I'll do. If I call someone, this initial call, and he picks up, I introduce myself, I ask that question. I said, by the way, thank you for answering your phone. It's so refreshing, which allows me then to get into the whole way that I communicate. And already if they're in a multiple offer situation, already they're going, I want to work with someone who I'm going to have a good deal with, that is going to work with me so we can get the deal closed. Because you know how many deals get into escrow? It's so funny. I was working with this one agent. It's funny that we never got it together. And she opened up to me and kept telling me how my client wanted this particular house, but we ended up finding her a better one. And literally, she's telling me how many times they went into an escrow. They had multiple offers. They went in, and for 3 different reasons, the buyers canceled. So I kept on tracking this, and I'm like, hey, Cindy, I noticed that your property's back on the market. Is it still available? And I was trying to get her to, we actually have a buyer who's not going to cancel, and that's what I was trying to say to her. And she was just making some mistakes, like choosing maybe deals that look good with investors who had never seen the property. And that was one reason that somebody canceled. So then she finally changed the terms to say, don't write an offer unless your client's seen it. Okay. And then a buyer changed their mind. Right. So these things happen. But it's all about communicating and building some rapport by picking up the phone. Do you know how many transactions happen these days where the 2 agents never physically talk to each other?
Probably more than not, unfortunately.
All through email and a little texting. So much of that happens. Missing the boat. Things can be misinterpreted in emails, and you don't have to pick up the phone every time, but the first time, and anything that's super important, pick up the phone. That's what I want to say.
Now, anytime someone picks up the phone, I'm going to think they're
pick up the phone and call, not text, is what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Right before they pick up the phone, I'm going to be thinking to myself, oh my God, they're only answering the phone because their voicemail box is full.
All right. So be a collaborative deal maker. You will have a happier escrow and happier client.
Yeah, because you know what? At the end of the day, here's the deal. It makes everybody's life so much easier. This is the thing that's always just frustrates me so much about communication. It's like the things that you put off, or that the things that you are avoiding communicating, just make it harder. If you just get cut through it, even if it kills a deal, rather kill it now than just worry about it for 2 weeks and then kill it. It doesn't make any sense. So,
Matt, I think that comes with maturity, because in my early younger years, I was completely the person who did not want to confront or disappoint people. And it's not that I've just gotten hardened over the years. It's just that I really realized what you're saying several years ago, that it's better to just deal with it head on. and not make it because when you do ruminate and not get back, whether it's in your personal life or in business, and so delivering the news and just coming from just coming from professionalism in business. And it's like, I've worked with people and they're like, well, you handle that, and it's like, I understand. And I don't have a problem because I'm just going to do it with compassion and empathy if it's bad news.
Absolutely. But
I also try to come with the whole, I know this is horrible that this happened now, or we're not going to be able to get this, hey, seller or the buyer, this happened, but let's go take action now and let's move forward. I'm comfortable with that, but it only came after years of experience, frankly.
I'm telling you, ripping off the Band-Aid or just jumping in the pool, both of those things might be a little painful at first, but always a way better way to get it done, right? It's crazy.
Especially if you do it from the right space.
Right, exactly.
You're just coming from putting it off makes it worse if it's not great news, or if it's uncomfortable because maybe there's been some, back and forth and emotions and anger and stuff involved, and so you can't escalate like that. If somebody gets really upset and angry, you really have to just work this a whole nother level of communicating and the ability to not engage and the ability to calm somebody down, and that comes with practice too, and not battle and just try to turn things around. And sometimes people just need to vent, and that's okay as long as they're not being abusive. And then you can come back full circle and go, okay, let's move forward now, right?
That's
so there you go.
Actually.
All right, excellent stuff.
Oh. How come my communication magic is not magically moving forward?
Let's magically move to the next idea.
What the heck? Hold on. If you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing that this is not working. But if you're listening, just, there we go.
Oh, there's lots of ways to make that happen.
There we go.
This next tip is just another way that you can have systems in place when you're doing your real estate transaction that will help you. And this has helped us immensely. And that is to have templated emails through your CRM that you use for sellers and buyers throughout the transaction. And so what do we mean by this? Well, if you already have it pre-written and you have it in your campaign, and we use Gmail, so we just have it as a saved template in Gmail. It starts with, congratulations, we're in escrow. What's next? Here's the next steps. Don't assume that because somebody has bought or sold a property before, they are up to speed with everything. People want to know what's next. What's the next step? And if you're proactive in communicating that, again, it leads to a complete VIP experience. And people are just like, wow, you guys, we get comments all the time. You guys are just great at communicating, or you're great at staying on top of things. And this has not been my experience with previous real estate agents, which isn't that sad. It's really not hard to rise above and be 5 stars versus, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because you just do what you ought to be doing. Okay. So congratulations, we're in escrow. That's our first one. It's going to have the escrow information. It's going to say, here's what's next. Get ready for the wire instructions. Remember wire fraud. And, it's different for the buyer and the seller. And so you're going to do that. Then it's going to be for the buyer. Hey, here's 3 home inspection companies. Here's the scenario. Here's the escrow information. We'll help you coordinate that. Let us know. Then we'll do one with, do you want to get a home warranty? Here's 3 home warranty companies. And again, this is all templated. All we have to do is pull up the template, customize it slightly if there's something unique. Then we have things like, here's what's next. Don't forget to get your insurance policy. You check with the people that insure you now. And then if you're buying a new home, the builders sometimes have somebody and they get some good insurance rates. So compare that. Don't forget to do that. Then it's going to come down to things like moving checklist, and here's all the utility information, and start thinking about that and changing your post office address. So you're just basically giving them things to do all the way along as the milestones happen. And then finally, it's going to be what to expect at the closing appointment. Don't forget to bring your ID and, so those are 5 or 6 that are standard for every transaction. And if you just do this, now the way this works is you have to have a checklist. If you have multiple transactions, you need a checklist telling you, make sure you send out this email or go check on that. And this is the kind of stuff that we do daily. We look at our escrows and say, what do we need to do? What do we need to send out? Where are we at with it? Okay. So that is another way to communicate, but with effortless time. If you don't have the templates done, then you have to sit and write the email each time. Hello, that's the whole point. You still having some challenges moving the slide?
I got it. I thought I was going to, but it worked this time. Magic.
All right, it's all good. If you're listening, as always, folks, many of you listen on podcasts, but of course we do have all of this information in the form of a video over on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see some of these slides. Plus, Matt always puts all the notes in the show notes, right?
That's right.
And this is episode 255. So let's talk about a couple things here. So I think we've hit the whole, I just talked about a user transaction checklist. Don't assume that you know everything. And it's so funny because I coach seasoned agents all the time. And I'm like, where's your checklist for a buyer and a seller? Well, I don't need that. I kind of been doing it for so long. I know what to do.
Yeah,
I get you. And I kind of fall into that trap too, because I do know what's next just from 30 years of doing this. But honestly, when you start doing multiple transactions in a month, you don't know, did I already do that or not? So just use a freaking transaction checklist. We have these in our sales builder program, real estate sales builder program, our team builder program. If you've never created one, that you can take the one that we have and then just turn it into what you need for your area. I love using those. It's just easy to sit and go done, 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 done. Okay. I think we've hit the point today, more personal connections, right? Less emails, emails are needed, but when it comes to important connections, make the calls in your transactions. Calling your past clients is more powerful, or sending even a video to them about happy birthday or happy anniversary. Those things are kind of important. And note cards, Matt, I really need to get back to doing more personal note cards. We talk about this all the time. Yep. And the only way that this is going to happen for me is I got to have the note cards in front of me, like every day, knowing that who can I write a card to, right? You are so good at writing note cards because I still hold on to all the cards you've ever written me. I have them in my little.
I know I've got them. I got a lot of them on my board back here.
Yeah, right behind his board, he's got notes up there. But it's not a hard thing to do, right? There's so many opportunities to write a little personal note, and people don't get mail. They don't get real mail anymore. They just get circulars for the grocery store and junk mail, and hardly they even get bills. Everybody gets online stuff.
I know it really has come down to really just that, third class mail.
You want to stand out, send personal note cards. Send personal note cards to your clients. I was just telling Matt before we started the show today, one of the things we're doing this year with I've done things like near the end of the year for the new year, magnetic calendars, things like that. And people like those, but everybody has calendars so much now in their phone and all that, but people still put those things on the refrigerator. But this year we decided to do for Las Vegas, or such a sports capital of the world now, Magnets USA. USA is one of my favorite little places to get materials like note cards and not note cards, but notepads. Did you ever do a notepad, Matt, in the day?
Absolutely.
I had notepads. I think you showed me that you found some notepads years ago.
I think I've got one here. I must know.
Oh, come on. I need to see it.
It's behind something. I can't get to it.
While he's looking for his notepad with his real estate picture, I probably have one of those. Better Homes and Gardens was my first company, but people use them, right? Well, we're doing a side-by-side large size postcard that has a magnet on it that they can put on their refrigerators, that has the Las Vegas Raiders football schedule, which they start next week as we record this. And then the Stanley Cup champs, who we're talking about.
Mighty Ducks!
Vegas Golden Knights start in October, and that schedule is on there. I think that's a cool thing to give out. And they have all of those. This is like a dual sports team, and they have it for every major city. So very cool stuff. Now, I'm going to get those. They're about to come in this week, and I'm going to send a personal note out to each of our clients. That's more personal note to them. How's everything going? And then, now it's a little something that they're getting. So these are things that you can do for your past clients, but you can also do it in the middle of a transaction, sending a note to someone who you just closed with, even though you might have told them, like I'll tell them in an email, hey, Matt, it was such a great pleasure to work with you. I look forward to doing it in the future. This just goes a long way. Real estate's a small world in your little area. Trust me. And it's the majority of the people that do all the business. It's a small percentage of them, and you're going to run.
And Lord knows you can't use the excuse you don't know their address. Hello, you just sold them a house.
Yeah, and right? Even talking to the other agents and the lenders and the title company, people don't get enough of that kind of personal connection. So these are the ways you stand out, guys. Which
it's interesting because if you start doing personal notes and kind of even outside of the transaction, just even your personal life or within your industry, sending notes out to people just to kind of recognize them. I'll tell you, writing the personal note actually makes me feel good, right? So it's
Yes.
double duty after you do it for a while, because you know you're going to make someone smile or make them think, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? So
I agree.
it's not just great for them. It also does a little something for you too. So think about that. And Jan O'Brien, while we've been talking here, I think that our challenge for Gratitude Month, November, which is just actually now that it's September 1st, as of us filming, taping this, it's 2 months away. I think our gratitude challenge in November should be note card a day in November and just expressing gratitude to people.
Love it. I'm on it.
Well, I'm going to get on Canva. I'm going to get on Canva this weekend. I'm going to design a new note card for us. Have those things printed up through Canva, and I'll have some sent to you. I'll have some sent to me, and we're going to do that in November. Challenge on.
All right. If you're listening and you're on our mailing list, you could get a personal note from Matt, which is pretty special.
There you go.
All right. Awesome. So all this is about creating a VIP experience before, during, and after the transaction. I think I have two little scenarios that I just wanted to share just to once again that are just to drive it all home. So these are some little pet peeves that happened to me recently that I was like, wow, here's one easy way. If you are the listing agent in a transaction, to just go above and beyond and communicate better. Because if when we're the listing agent, so let me back up to that. So if I'm the listing agent, Cosmo and I are the listing agent, and the buyer wants some repairs done after the inspection, and we get that negotiated and agreed upon, and then we coordinate having the handyman or whatever come out and do the inspections, and instead of like a credit, the seller's really saying, I'll fix these 5 things. Here's what we do. We literally meet. We get the handyman, or we meet the handyman, and we take photos, or we ask him to take photos and videos, and we send them to the other agent as proof so that they could let their buyer know, hey, everything's fixed. Now, they're supposed to only going to go check that when it's the walkthrough. But I have gotten to walkthroughs, and this is why I'm bringing this up, because I'm like, doesn't everybody do this? No, not everybody does this. Because I'm having to ask listing agents, hey, where are we at with those? Because they'll say something like, hey, we're working on those inspection items and getting them repaired. And I'm like, great, can you send us some proof of that? Because I've gotten to twice this year a walkthrough where we're going to close in 2 days and the repairs haven't been done. So now we have to extend escrow or renegotiate something. And now you've got buyers and sellers, and our buyers have got moving trucks coming. And all that had to happen was just the communication of what I thought everybody did. Hey, here's proof that the repairs are done. I know you're going to check them at the walkthrough, but we want to send that to you. Here's the receipt. Here's a picture of the leaky faucet now working perfectly from the handyman. I mean, how hard is that, Matt?
That's super smart, actually. And then, that's the thing about email or even text, really. It's documentation of your transaction is really important, right? Just to have for, should anything happen. But I mean, that's just brilliant. That's great.
And then
that's being super proactive.
The last tip is Tammy Harrison, who we're going to actually have come talk to us. Actually, yeah. We're scheduling her because she's great at just talking about different programs, and I've known her for years, and she's done all my loans in the past. She has got one of the best follow-up programs for clients, a la the Brian Buffini. But what I really love about her, and I've recently had 1 or 2 other lenders that I have worked with as a listing agent, or the buyer had chosen, that have a similar program, which is basically an email update from her at every key milestone to say, here's your weekly update. Here's where we are. I just find that like, wow. You talk about so it's going to escrow. It's going to our buyer. It's going to the other listing agent to say, here's where we are with the appraisal. And everyone will chime in and go, thank you so much for the update. And then when I have other agents talk about working with Tammy, they'll be like, wow, she was great to work with, because people don't do that. So are you doing the same thing? I've already talked about it. Are you keeping people in communication of where we are? And I know why I say this is because this is what we do. And how much it bothers you when we had a transaction where we're the listing agent, and it was like pulling teeth to get the buyer's agent to give us an update on anything. All the way through every milestone, I would have to email. This is where I had a voicemail situation where the listing agent's voicemail was full. Then I would text the assistant. And then as soon as I texted the assistant, she'd be like, oh yeah, here we are. We've got that. But I had to be the one to go, How are we doing on the inspection? How are we doing on the appraisal? What's up with your buyer's loan approval? It was so frustrating because there's part of me starting to go down that path that say, they're not talking to me. I wonder if that buyer's changing their mind. When I can't tell the seller everything's okay because I'm not getting communication, this is where we all go. That's how we started out our talk today. So you avoid that by being proactive with your communication, which is magical. And I'm just going to end with that.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to end, right?
Be magical in your communication.
Be magical, because here's the deal. Communication works for those who work at it. You can improve. This whole thing is about some self-awareness too, because you might think you're the best communicator in the world, right? But when you really start dissecting the way you actually, are communicating or the way you handle your business, you might find that there are a couple holes there that you can improve on. Communication in a transaction, in business and in life, honestly, can make your life so much easier, or it can be that huge stumbling block along the way. So just be in tune, right? Get your Zen on and be one with your communication. It can be kind of magical. I'm just saying. What do we have up next? Episode 256 coming up next week. We're going to do another mashup. We are almost done with our Ask 5 mashups from season 1. Number 4 is all about, what inspires you, books, podcasts, Jan, Matt, those kind of things are coming up. These have been really fun. I've been enjoying watching them. We've been having some good responses from them as well. So I hope you are enjoying them as well. Then Jan O'Brien, what else do we have going on? We have a couple great people coming up that we have starting to get on the schedule for some more.
We have some more Ask 5. We're going to interview some more brokers. We do have Tammy's going to come in and talk to us. We've lined up some great speakers in between what we're going to keep sharing. We're almost completed with our real estate sales builder broker trainer certification program. I should be finishing up on that today, and then Matt has to finish uploading all the videos. We're very excited about that. So if you're listening and you are a team leader or a broker who is in need of a turnkey real estate agent training program for your agents, we have got it. We have ways that you can partner with us. We'll tell you more about that when we launch, but you could get on the list right now, and we've already got a few people that are got the early release of some of that information. Yeah. So if that's you, reach out to myself or Matt, and we'll set up a consultation and talk to you about how you can partner with us.
Right. And if you want to learn more about communication, any of you that have our real estate sales builder program, that module 5 of that is all about communication styles, which is a huge part of communication. In there, what I think is also interesting, and this works really well in a transaction, especially face-to-face or when you're with clients, we have an NLP section of that really talks about how, what is it? The spoken word is only 7% of communication, or 10% is really a low percentage, right? Jan, do you remember which one it is? It's a low.
Yeah, it's the smallest. It's like 50 something percent is body language. It's like, I can't remember what the number is, 20% or something is the word.
So we always assume that communication is, verbal and or texting and or emailing, right? But it's also very visual as well. So you can check that out over in Module 5 of Real Estate Sales Builder. You don't have Sales Builder? Oh, well, if you'd like to get Sales Builder, just go over to WBNLcoaching.com, click on our courses tab, and learn more about Sales Builder. Sales Builder is an awesome course for any agent. You don't have to be new, right? You just have to be someone that wants to get back to the basics, build a better, stronger foundation, and help your business thrive. 12-module course, a lot of great stuff in there. So go check that out over in WBNLcoaching.com. So Jan O'Brien, September 1st, here we are. We're getting near the autumnal equinox, which is my favorite part of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I do think that we have an episode coming up to talk about finishing the year strong and things that you can do, and we'll probably share more about what's in that Sales Builder program if you need a little help with some of that as well. But it is time. What you do right now, as we go into those last, frankly, it's September, October, November. What you put into escrow now is what's going to potentially close this year, and everything that you're doing like in that last quarter gets you going for the start of the new year. So that's what we're doing. I started a new thing. So we remember in the beginning of the year, Matt, we had 9 and 90 days.
I do. Yep.
Blew that out. All right. So we've been on track with this deal about every 10 days so far this year.
Love it.
So Cosmos sent something to me the other day saying that we need 11 more transactions in 124 days, but that's how many days were left in the year, to get to 36 transactions just
That's
between him
sweet.
and I. And our team has closed more, but we put the challenge up. I've got it up 11 and 11. I'm going to change it to 11 by the end of the year. 11 transactions by the end of the year.
I'm glad to know that, because now I can actually hold you accountable to that.
11 transactions, and we're working on a couple of them right now. All right.
I love it. That's really awesome. And we are getting back to finishing the year strong and starting next year even stronger. We usually do a lot of podcasts and a lot of conversation around business planning. We're going to ratchet that back a little bit this year, but if you are on our mailing list weekly, we're going to be giving you tips, tricks, and spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff that you can use on your business planning for 2024. Sounds weird to say that. Where did that come into the mix? 2024, what the hell? Anyway, this was episode 255. You can catch all of those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. In the meantime, everyone, get up, get out, enjoy September. Here we are. Live the life you've dreamed and be forever wandering, but not lost.
Boom.